what really kind of mattered to me and mattered to our team from the beginning is that how do we turn those people into brand advocates? Not just the ones who love us already and have a really positive experience with us, but also with the people who are not happy with what they had. And how do we learn from their experience and how do we make that better? And then they become the best brand advocates at the end because they'll be like, oh my God, they heard and they listened and then they made it right.
Have you ever wondered why some brands grow exponentially, building legions of passionate fans that live and die by their logos, and some, well, don't? I do, all the time, and that's probably because I'm a massive brand nerd, but I believe there's a secret sauce at the core of every remarkable brand, a formula that sparks the growth of passionate communities of superfans, building a business and a reputation that will last for years to come. In this podcast, we tap into the greatest marketing minds in the world, as they share the exact tactics and strategies used to build the world's greatest brands, dropping actionable insights every brand builder can apply. My name is Paul Archer, and I'm a specialist in brand advocacy and word of mouth, having consulted for hundreds of brands on a topic. Co-hosting with me is the wonderful Verity, expert on the bleeding edge of social media. It's time to learn and build brand advocacy.
Hello and welcome to Building Brand Advocacy. Today I am joined by the founder and creative director of one of my favourite brands, and they're known for feel good and wear forever clothes. They're making huge waves out there, and today we get to dig into the story behind KITRI. Welcome, Haeni.
Thank you so much for having me. Verity, lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. Honestly, I am fangirling right now.
You look amazing in that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Makes me want to bring out mine immediately.
I really wish you'd won the blue version now. Let's just go straight into sort of like your background, and you've experienced different areas, and particularly in the fashion industry, from marketing through to obviously like the creative direction now. I'd love to kind of hear your experience, one in the industry, but how that's really influenced sort of your, like how KITRI stand out, sort of the brand identity and your customer first model.
Yeah. To go really, really back. So I was born in South Korea. My family still live in South Korea, and I moved actually just myself over to England when I was 12 to pursue a dream of becoming a ballerina. It's really random. So yeah, that was kind of my first like dream really, and moved over here studying ballet, and I mean, such a difficult career. And when I was 19, 20, I started kind of thinking about perhaps going a different way. And when I decided to quit ballet, which was a really difficult decision, I kind of looked to the next kind of passion that I had in my life, which was fashion. So I decided to kind of look into that direction. I actually studied French with business management, which is really random for someone who wanted to, be in the fashion industry. In my head at the time, I wanted to be in the business side of fashion. So I wanted to learn French. I wanted to work in Paris and all these kind of like big fashion houses. And I thought like, French and business, that's going to definitely help. But it did kind of afford me the opportunity to work in Paris when I interned there for a year and I came back. And I worked for a London designer, high-end designer. And I kind of went in as an intern and worked my way through lots of different departments. So I think from a very young age, my father was an entrepreneur and is a businessman, had his own very successful company. I kind of really admired that. And I think ultimately, like, I knew that I wanted to start my own business at some point down the line. And having decided that fashion was the business I wanted to go into, I think I was just really keen on learning and absorbing as much as possible about all sides of the industry.
Yeah.
So I went in as marketing intern, and then because it was such a small company, which is also quite a great advantage to have early on in your career, I bounced around lots of different mentors who looked after finance, who looked after merchandising, who did marketing. So I kind of touched on everything from, like fashion shows to collection merchandising to like financing and accounting, all in kind of one area. So that was really kind of amazing to have so early in my career. And then I moved out to Hong Kong for 5 years. I worked for a company as a sourcing and manufacturing company out there. And this time it was like super value driven end of the industry. So your kind of high street chains, supermarket chains, kind of, mass product. So out there, I just wanted to get a different idea of like what other side of the industry kind of looked and felt like and how it worked. So I went from like a company that produced 12 dresses of one style to like 20,000. It was kind of like a huge learning curve on how different all of that process is. And out there, I traveled extensively around Asia. Obviously, I was based in Hong Kong. And I just learned so much from that experience as well. And from that point, they actually kind of asked me to put together a product development team out in London, because a lot of the customers were based out in London and Europe. And they kind of felt this need that their buyers wanted to see what they are able to do. So with my experience on fashion in London, they kind of thought, oh, why don't you just go and give it a go?
Yeah.
So I came out to London, built a team together of designers, product development team here, tiny, and then just kind of started doing that. And it really kind of gave me the opportunity to be more creative. And work with people in a collaborative way, and really understanding what our clients at the time wanted and what I wanted, and in the end didn't quite work out, because I think what I wanted was quite different to what our company wanted. But it all worked out in the end. And then I came back to London after that experience, because I have kind of gathered enough experience and knowledge to kind of know what I'm doing, but I was still quite naive and ambitious, apparently. And I just kind of felt like, you know what, I want to start my own brand. London is where I know and where I love.
Yeah.
Let's start it there. So I kind of came back and started the brand in 2017. So
that's so
fascinating.
It's
been 7 years now. Yeah.
It honestly is such a fascinating story, and I love it. And I think, one, it just shows like throwing yourself into things, and also just accepting when things aren't, like, obviously you mentioned your ballet career, and that is a difficult decision to kind of just go for any career, when you just go, I really want this, but it's just not going to work. And yeah, I was a dancer. Yeah. I was contemporary dancer. Where did you train?
Well, I trained a bit of, I did all the summer schools, like the Royal Ballets and English Nationals. And
amazing.
I particularly love dancing with National Youth Ballet, who I danced with for years, actually.
Yeah.
Until that could potentially have been my last performance. But yeah, from the age of like 9, I was ballet mad. Like every morning before school, every afternoon after school. And from your experience probably, that it's such a competitive and all-consuming world. So when that kind of ended, and to be honest, it ended because I just didn't have the right body.
It's awful that world when you just, when it comes down to something so based on appearance.
Yeah, and something that you can't change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that kind of like prepared me for a lot of the hardship that you go through as a business, like as a founder. Although it doesn't make it any easier. But yeah, it's definitely like made me kind of, okay, what is my next passion? And just throw myself into it.
Yeah.
As all in.
Yeah.
And see how that goes.
Incredible. Would you say that is sort of like the ballet chapter in your life, has that had an influence on KITRI in terms of like from design to brand structure? Because obviously it's such a discipline, isn't it? Has it had much influence into the brand?
Yeah, I'd say so. To be honest, I think the first influence was the name.
Yeah.
So when it came to naming the brand, everybody around me was saying like, why don't you just call it your name? Like, and we've just experienced it. Haeni, my name, is actually, if you look at it written, which is how a lot of your customers are going to come to you seeing it written. Yeah. It's pretty impossible to guess how to pronounce it. Way too many vowels in my name. And also, I don't know, I think I was naive, but also I had a very clear idea from the beginning that I wanted the brand to survive me, and I wanted the brand to have longevity. And I just wanted it to be not just about me. So I kind of looked around to inspiration, and one of the obvious inspiration was dance. And KITRI is the name of the ballet character, that the solo that I danced first when I was like, I still have photos. I was like 10 maybe. Everybody wanted to dance the role of KITRI because it was like this feisty, fun, playful character. And she had this like great accessories. She had this like red rose in her hair. The music's really vibrant. She had a fan, and like she doesn't marry for she does marry for money, and she marries for love, and it's just like such an amazing like role model for women, like for ballerinas that age, rather than like dying swan or princess that needs to be rescued, you know. So I kind of thought of it, and I was like, you know what, that feels right. We want to kind of capture that spirit of like lively, elegant, vivacious, feisty women, you know. So I also like the fact that it was 5-letter words with a T in the middle is symmetry.
I love the attention to detail with that.
And quite a strong, like, you know, sound, like KITRI. So it all kind of came together. So KITRI became the name of the brand. It was from a ballet called Don Quixote. So it kind of all stemmed from there. So that definitely had a huge impact on the brand and my career. But, you know, I think the way that I design, the way that we look at our kind of collection is very much based on like, how do we make women the center stage? You know, how do we make her the heroine of a story, and how do we make her feel amazing and confident? How can she move in our clothes? How does she feel comfortable in our clothes? Because obviously, you know, dancing is so much about movement and feeling elegant and being totally in control. So yeah, I think that kind of comes very, very automatically to me, and don't want things to be restrictive, and also just that kind of sense of drama. I love that. Just kind of making sure that she feels like, you know, she's bringing it, you know, and she feels amazing in what she's wearing. That's kind of what we want to bring to the table. So yeah, I
think I've just fallen in love with the brand a little bit more. Honestly, no, I love that. And it's, you know, when we sort of ask people their favorite brand, like Ganni comes up a lot because of the Ganni girl, and you know, and I think it's not the same, but a similar concept in like when you're wearing it, you see another girl wearing it, and you kind of give each other like a little wink and like, we've got this, and I love that, and that's exactly kind of like what you've just described there, and bringing that kind of like community of girls together that feel like that, and that's so empowering. Absolutely love it. I mean, obviously KITRI was born because you felt there was a gap in the market, right? There was a niche there that you wanted to fill. That's right? Yeah.
I've worked in the fashion industry since I graduated, really. I mean, even before that, and working with amazing brands and being around amazing designers and looking up to, you know, these incredibly chic, amazing, you know, elegant women. But in my early 20s, mid 20s, even like now probably, you can't really have access or have, you know, can afford those amazing brands and amazing designs and ideas. And when I was kind of growing up in the industry in my mid 20s and late 20s, when I started KITRI, I was working so hard and working in industry. And I just really wanted something that was quality first and foremost, unique design that didn't feel really like too niche or too mass. I wanted something that's going to make me shine, make me feel great, and something that people will recognize as like, oh, you know, that's, you know, you're wearing something that's special, you know, without the price tag. So was really looking around, trying to find something to wear to like an event or, you know, with friends for dinner. And I couldn't really rely on any one or, you know, a couple of brands. So I started asking, and I mean, I'm working in the industry, so I should know, you know, exactly. You're doing market research all the time, competitive research and analysis. And I couldn't really quite put my finger on it. At the time I was I was looking at high street mainly because that's kind of the price point that I could afford. But the quality wasn't there, the quality that I was looking for. And also I just didn't like the fact that it was mass. So, you know, I turn up to an event and somebody will be wearing the same thing, or I don't have that kind of... I can't just look away when things are going to disintegrate in the wash, like, because I work in the industry and I know what quality feels like. At the same time, I couldn't really afford designer brands in department stores that I really admired. But, not necessarily just affordability, but the design sometimes felt too serious or too niche. And I couldn't really find that balance. So when I asked around my friends, they felt the same. So I was like, oh, you know what? I think there is something here. We're creative working professionals. We know what we're looking for, but it's not there. So why don't we go about creating that? So this was back in 2016, 17. So, Ganni was just taking off. D2C brands were just taking off in America in a big way, like, Glossier's away.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I looked up to and trying to see how do we actually, distill that into consumer first brand that I dreamt of.
Incredible. And did you have any sort of like particular tactics that you use sort of at the beginning of the journey? Like you just mentioned, obviously Ganni was kicking off. There was more D2C brands kicking off. Like what did you do to establish your brand as like the standout brand, especially when it comes to community? Because you've now got this army of KITRI girls and they're proud to be as well.
I wish there was a strategy.
Yeah. Do you know how many people say that? Or didn't really have a strategy?
I think back in the day, I was just really convinced that there wasn't really anybody trying to solve the dilemma that I was trying to solve. And casting your mind back at that point, like Instagram was like we were still using filters and taking photos of our food.
Yeah. A different world.
It was a different world. I had a bit of like a D2C experience before. So when I was working in London, I actually grouped up with a couple of my friends who actually have incredible businesses themselves now. We decided to do like a direct-to-consumer antiques brand. Like this was before like Instagram antique situation. What we would do is we would go to like flea markets and antique shows and just pick up lots of like little trinkets that we loved. And then we just photographed it, wrote copy ourselves and just posted it online. What was really amazing that I didn't really realize at the time working in fashion, particularly in high end, is like the direct feedback that you get from your customers when you have a D2C brand. So we would post something on Instagram, we'd write an email, and the reaction that you get from that, it was so immediate and so unfiltered that it was such a buzz.
Yeah.
And we couldn't believe it. And this was like back in the day when there was no Shopify, there was none of that. We literally like got someone to code it for us and we put it up on Squares. I mean, it was pretty wild times.
It's not that long ago either, is it?
Yeah, you could do it. Like no warehouse, our flats back in the day were just like filled with just boxes. And I think that's where I got the bug and understood the importance of direct connection with our customers. So with KITRI, I think in a way I was trying to kind of replicate that. I love the idea of understanding what the customers wanted from the beginning and being able to react to that quickly. So I guess at the time I was trying to kind of, not only with the price point and quality and the design, I was trying to bridge the gap between like high street mass, like huge, this, chain of supply and demand and, the layers and layers of corporate communication that needs to happen to bring a product to life and in customers' hands versus high-end designers who are, it was very exclusive back then. They're a lot more communicative now, but you don't really get to understand whatever's going on. And they weren't really interested in what the customers wanted because they were very much like, this is what we imagine for you and this is what you get, So I wanted to bridge that gap too. So, we brought small curated edit of styles. Sometimes it would be 4, sometimes it would be 8. What I knew at the time was that we wanted to bring regular drop professionals to our customers, to bring them back to our site, to get them excited about the drops and to really get a read super early and regularly on what's working and what's not. So we did super limited quantities, very frequent drops of very curated edit, and all of a sudden, we started getting repeat customers because customers were kind of getting buzzed about it. They were really excited about it. And we started being integrated into their routine. Every Sunday morning at 8 a.m., we'd drop new products. And I'd go on our Shopify back end and I'd see people logging in from like 7:30, like loitering.
Nice. That's
which
a good
is
feeling.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then you drop and then, sales will start coming in. And I think Instagram was definitely important to us. But I think, we didn't really understand the power of Instagram back then, but we were doing like whatever felt natural to us. Here's a new job. What do you think? And then gifting influencers that we felt was a good brand fit, who would become good ambassadors of the brand and who we're really good friends with now. Just gifting them, just tell us what you think. Do you like it? Would love it if you could wear it. If you like the product. But I think at that point, once you have the garment in your hands and the quality is good, then you actually start building that relationship. And it just becomes quite a natural thing. But one story that I loved, a few months in, it wasn't actually that long after we launched in February. And we had our first pop-up launch in Soho. We launched in February. My husband and I got married in June, and we launched our pop-up in August or something like that.
A casual year.
3, one after the other. Getting heart palpitations thinking about it now, but that's what we did. Crazy.
You do go all in, right?
All in.
Go big or go home.
And when we did our first pop-up, we had customers come into the store. We had, various events and activations. All of them said to us that me and my friends have a WhatsApp group to talk about what you guys are dropping next, and because we released teasers of what we were about to release, and they used to talk about which ones that they were going to buy and which ones that they love within the WhatsApp group, which was just mind-blowing to me. We were only going for like 6 months at that time. But yeah, that's the power of community and word of mouth, I guess. Even unbeknownst to all of us in our team, these little pockets of community were happening.
Yeah. I mean, we all hate sort of saying the word authentic, but that is such an authentic journey, isn't it, to kind of get to that point? And that's obviously something that we talk about a lot, is obviously word of mouth. And I think a lot of brands are sitting on a gold mine of opportunities that they just don't know, because it's almost like this dark social now, isn't it? With the DMs, and a lot of the engagement is happening more in the DMs, and brands aren't ever going to see that, but having those conversations and opening up that dialogue is when they're going to find out that word of mouth is actually just naturally happening, and that's what is going to drive a brand these days, 100%. So I love that story. I listened to a podcast from you 2 years ago, and you were talking about at the time, the main focus was around the product, obviously, and you said that the next big push was going to be sort of the marketing side of it. I'd love to just kind of understand, obviously it's been 2 years, what has that journey looked like? What are some of the biggest things that you've learned, the challenges as well?
Hey, it's me again. This podcast is sponsored by Duel, which is it's my company, actually. Duel is the leading brand advocacy platform used by the top retail consumer brands, including Unilever, Charlotte Tilbury, Elemis, Loop, and about 50 more, to manage, measure, and scale their advocacy, member, affiliate, creator, and brand ambassador operations. The platform offers unparalleled scale for complex brands by automating 9 out of 10 of the standard advocacy management activities and allowing them to focus on arming their advocates with the right tools to tell the brand story and drive social commerce. They can grow faster for less. We only work with 15% or so of the brands we speak to, but we try and add value in many other ways, this podcast being one of them. So if you are a brand that's interested in this, maybe a large consumer retail brand, ideally you're doing $20, $30 million as a minimum, and you're pretty advanced on social and you need to know what the next stage is, then please get in touch. Email me, paul@duel.tech. That is paul@duel.tech, or Google duel.tech.
It's crazy to think that we've been going for 7 years, but within that 7 years, it feels like a lifetime, but also like a blink of an eye. When we started in 2017, and the brand was just growing and growing and growing, and we hit the pandemic. So that was when we were just about to have our second birthday. So we are an independent brand, small team, and it just kind of threw us for a loop. And thank God we were small and agile, actually. But there were a lot of kind of complexities that came with that. We had just taken on wholesale. Amazing timing. Since we started, wholesale partners have been knocking on our door to say, we'd love to stock you, we'd love to stock you. I wanted to start the brand as D2C for a reason. So we kind of held back for a really long time. And then after that kind of initial first year and just trying to really kind of work out where our place was going to be, I thought, you know what, actually it'd be amazing to have key wholesale accounts that we partner with, and they could, you know, be really kind of drivers of word of mouth, like you said, place of discovery and reaching more audiences. So we decided, you know what, let's go for it. And as all those orders came into our warehouse, which we were running ourselves at the time, pandemic hit and everything stopped. And it's amazing, really, thinking about it now. We're such a small brand and a new brand. Like 90% of our orders from wholesale cancelled. So we were put into this kind of tailspin from 2020 with this huge amount of stock. And mind you, we were all about limited stock.
Yeah.
So staying agile, staying focused, and really driving sales was our key to survival. So how we balance that with our brand messaging, but also how we make sure that we survive that with brand messaging intact, which is so challenging. We really focus on product, making sure that, you know, we were designing new products that people wanted to buy in that time of pandemic where everything was turning really casual. So we had to pivot a lot with product. We had to pivot a lot with our sales strategy. And all of that was just like a blur. Is that now like a blur to me? In 2022, when I recorded that podcast, my focus was really, okay, we're past that now. How can we actually start strengthening brand again? We pulled all of that back. We feel like we're now getting to a position where, you know, we're in solid growth and we are understanding where our customers' lives are right now. But I do still think that there's a huge shift in customer behavior from pre-pandemic to where we are now. So what we kind of lacked during those times due to kind of business challenges and you know, various different things that we had to kind of pivot.
Yeah.
Really wanted to refocus on brand marketing and what our customers are looking for. So what's really tricky about brand marketing for me and our company is that, particularly in times of like sales became so important for survival, is you can't really directly justify that cost to finance. Do you get this a lot with brands?
All the time.
It's always such a fight, like mental struggle.
Yeah.
Because I love brand and that's why I do what I do. I love product, that's what I do. But I think to finance and to numbers, to accounts, it's just like X needs to bring an ROI of, you know, Y, and, you know, you put in this and, you know, we need to see at least this, you know, and that is quite understandable and digestible. Whereas, you know, brand marketing coming in and going like, oh, okay, so we're going to do this like event and you're not going to see anything in return for ages. Like,
this is my life.
Like, we're going to do this beautiful shoot, but there's not going to be a direct return. Is that okay? You know?
I'm laughing and also crying inside because honestly it is my life. And it's the same, like when we interview other brands as well, especially from the brand marketing side, it's just the same. But actually what I'm loving right now is that, and Vogue even did an article on it, I can't remember when, if it was early this year or last year, that brand is having a resurgence.
Yes.
And I think it's right. And it's almost like brands are now coming back to that this is what is going to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And so many people are now putting more effort into brand, but you're right, it's such a hard battle.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting, like from 2022, when we kind of started shifting our focus towards, you know, really understanding marketing and what our strategies were, because previous to that, it was kind of like ad hoc. We just kind of did what felt natural to us. And I guess that kind of, that, for the lack of a better word, authenticity worked for us. And then we kind of went quite hard into performance marketing for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
We'd been very, very careful about that previously, because I just couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
We heard
it's a very different skill set, isn't it?
Yeah.
Very different way of thinking.
Absolutely. And 2022 till now, I've been learning a lot about performance marketing, and, you know, there's been some, you know, big learnings there that I probably hopefully will never make that same mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
Just really over focusing on sales and forgetting and that kind of quick sale to make sure that you're meeting your targets, you're meeting your sales, all of that.
Yeah.
Versus that kind of looking at more of a long-term goal of the brand. I just kind of very naively thought we have this organic and we have really great brand will from existing customers who are brand advocates. We are okay to do performance marketing that we can deploy to get sales and etc. But I think what I didn't really understand is that you're going to deplete that really quickly unless you have that kind of longer term brand brand segment that you're really kind of focusing your energy on for your future sales. So yeah, that's been a tough learning. And I think in times of like particularly startups and in the last 5 to 7 years, everybody's gone through so many ups and downs. Good times, amazing. Bad times, horrendous. And we will do what we have to do to survive and pay our employees, and those decisions are not made lightly. But also as the founder, you do have to keep an eye on the long term because you might be okay today, 6 months, but in a year, 2 years time, what is that going to do to your brand?
Yeah.
So that's been, a really like valuable learning and really kind of understanding. I think now finance is beginning to see it as well, which is great. They're like, oh, I see why you're talking about brand all this time. Oh, okay, okay. Let's do that now.
You've won.
But yeah, we're really now focusing on kind of going back to our roots, beginning to understand, grassroots, customers, VIPs. That's so important for our brand from the beginning. And again, things have changed so much from the beginning that we really want to understand where our customers are finding the importance of our brand now in their life. So in the beginning, I started the brand for creative working professionals. In the day, we were all wearing heels, traveling cappuccinos, trying to be Carrie Bradshaw, running in and out of office, tutoring in. That was our working life. After the pandemic, things have changed so much. Our customers have also grown up with us. They might be mothers, they might be freelancers, they might be, working nomads. They could be, in the city. They may have moved out of the city now. What do they do? Like, how do they live and what is relevant for them now? So I think I'm really using this time to reconnect with our customers and trying to understand what they are feeling and what feels important to them now.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that are like, grassroots, like dinners, surveys, kind of, highlighting some of the key creatives that we love working with and who we really admire, and trying to kind of inspire our customers to see what we're doing now and how that could fit into their lives.
Yeah, love that. I suppose I want to touch on a couple of things that you've mentioned there. I suppose first thing is obviously you said that you used you gifting a lot at the start as well. I suppose first off, has there been any sort of like favourite collaborations that you've done?
Oof, difficult. We've done collaborations from the very beginning, and I think that's because we all work in the creative industries and we naturally lean towards other creatives.
Yeah.
And, being a relatively young female founder, I gravitated towards these other young brands that was just starting out and ambitious and doing something interesting and something creative.
Yeah.
And I just loved the idea of collaboration. So we partnered up with quite a lot of like really, really new brands in the very beginning and new artists that were just starting out. And, some of the ones I can think of is like Josie Devine, who did a beautiful kind of sunbathers print for us for one of the summer collections. We worked with Fair Home Studios when they did candles during lockdown and it was literally coming out of their kitchen.
Yeah.
We worked with Amuse Labouche, who this brilliant homeware designer who just started out her own kind of collection, and I loved it. And then we just did a collaboration on the back of that. She's now hugely successful. So we've done lots of different kind of adjacent creative industries to fashion, which I think is quite an interesting thing for our customers.
Yeah, I think it's important as well. Like we've talked about this around sort of like coming out of your own category as well, because that you know, the reach of that, and you tapping into new audiences, and as long as it aligns, I think it works brilliantly.
And it kind of showed us that, like, you know, we're aligning ourselves with other brands and, you know, people that our customers will naturally be looking at, and it makes sense for us, and quite like that kind of unexpected little twist.
Yeah.
So they've all been amazing. Like, I loved working with all of them. And then the big collaboration that we did was with content creative influencer Jessie Bush, who we love. And she had been one of our kind of dream boards from the very beginning of KITRI. She's just got this like really cool, effortless, creative way of dressing, and just really kind of frank and like just really easy to get on with. And she is actually, fun fact, we have the same birthday.
Oh, nice.
Jessie and I. And how that came about, I also think was really authentic, because when we went into pandemic, I don't know why we keep on talking about, well, I keep on talking about pandemic. It was obviously
but
quite
it's
traumatic.
had such a big impact, hasn't it? Yeah.
Because we were doing frequent drops and we did small drops, we didn't really follow a traditional fashion calendar. And when we went into lockdown, and that was February, we still hadn't shot any of our summer collection yet. That was coming out in like May, June that year. And all studios were closed, couldn't do any shoots. We didn't know when we could next do the shoot. And we had all these products kind of like just in our warehouse. What to do? So we kind of reached out to some of the influencers and content creators at the time that has supported us from the very beginning through gifting. One of whom was Jessie. And Jessie, actually, her husband is a very talented photographer, and Jessie herself used to be a photographer. And obviously, they lived together, and they were isolating together.
Yeah.
So we asked her, like, you know, would you be interested in shooting our capsule summer collection in your home, the way that you would wear it, in a kind of, you know, natural way? And she did. And it was just amazing, lovely to work with over Zoom. And when we launched that collection, it just blew up. And it wasn't even like a design collaboration. It was just photographs that she took in our home, in her style. And it just really resonated with our customers. So after that, we decided, oh my God, our customers love this. Shall we actually do a design collaboration? So it just came about in the most kind of organic way. And we did Spring Summer collab, which was 20 pieces, did a tiny little mini summer collection, and then another autumn winter collection throughout the next year. And that was just such a joy from the start to finish. She's lovely to work with. Just someone that I can imagine our customers just kind of wanting to hang out with. Yeah. And a huge success. So that is probably the most memorable so far.
Lovely. Yeah. How does sort of your influencer or creator sort of strategy look today? Because obviously, you know, people are working with all sizes of influencers and creators now. Is it still very much very natural? Just how does it work at KITRI?
So we have like a big dream list.
Nice.
And then we kind of, you know, sit down together and decide, okay, so who are the people that we really want to work with this season? What does a season collection look like? Yeah. Who it's going to resonate with the most? And start kind of working it out that way. We have a certain percentage of our stock that is like put aside for gifting. Yeah. Very small, but it's still kind of safeguarded. And start reaching out. I think we do have different levels, kind of in terms of reach. So you have your kind of, you know, big influencers with bigger reach, and then you have kind of that mid, and then also micro. So, you know, people who content creators who create beautiful content and is a really good fit for the brand and the look and feel of the brand, but might not have that kind of, you know, 250, 300,000 reach, all the way up to, you know, millions and etc. But I think the most important thing for us is that is it going to feel like a natural fit rather than like, why are they doing that, you know? And we see that all the time with big brands. And as the customers ourselves in our team, we kind of feel like, did you see that? That was a bit random, you know? Yeah. And that's not what we want for our brand at all. So I want to make sure that they resonate with the brand. Our customers will love seeing them in our clothes. And yeah, that's kind of how we do it. There isn't really a huge amount of strategy going behind that. Yeah.
But I think that's probably the difference between building a brand so beautifully like you have with KITRI, is that, you know, you're always gonna, I know you guys have, you said you've got a dream list, but there's always going to be people knocking at your door and people that are just naturally buying and then showcasing what they're wearing. And I suppose that you don't need to think about it too much. It's just naturally going to be there for you guys. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned when building such a loyal community?
That the bad reviews is also matter.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like reviews, but customer feedback is so important, and it has been from day one. There is so much noise, and there's definitely an element of like keyboard warriors out there, and just kind of, you know, they want to be seen, and more often than not, they're all really reasonable complaints, and customers, we're not perfect, you know, so we do make mistakes, and customers quite rightly so feel like, you know, they need to get better service or better. So I think it's really easy to kind of dismiss that as like, oh my God, they're just being, you know, as a brand. But what really kind of mattered to me and mattered to our team from the beginning is that how do we turn those people into brand advocates?
Yeah.
Not just the ones who love us already and have a really positive experience with us, but also with the people who are not happy with what they had, and how do we learn from their experience, and how do we make that better? And actually the people who didn't have a great experience with you from the beginning, but then actually the brand went over and beyond and helped you out, and and then they become the best brand advocates at the end, because they'll be like, oh my God, like they heard and they listened and then they made it right.
Yeah.
And I think those are also just as important as the good ones. Our customer reps have, you know, detailed answers to most common questions and complaints that they might receive, and that goes through that process. And most of the time that's kind of where people are, oh, okay, thank you very much for your help, you know, where's my tracking number, how do I do the returns, you know, all of those kind of, you know, very run-of-the-mill D2C questions. But when there are more difficult, challenging customer complaints or feedback, then they escalate. So they have a really clear route to escalation. That will reach one of our team, and our team will have a Slack channel for just pure customer service. So if it's a fit complaint, or if it's a question about what size they should get, all of those things are actually answered by our immediate team, which is, I think, really important. And also that feedback is invaluable to our next product fitting, or our next product design, or how we communicate that online for our e-com team, or how we shoot it for our creative team. So it's just all around just really amazing feedback. And if there is anything else, like, you know, more serious, then it gets escalated directly to me or my husband and business partner. Wow. So then we will sit down together and go, how do we solve this? How do we make this customer feel really heard and make her feel understood? And how do we make this better? Most of the time, we would write back ourselves directly from our email account to explain, to apologize, and to offer a few different solutions. So rather than just kind of, sorry, this can't be done, or sorry, what can we do? We try to give them multiple options. So A, you can do this and do that. B, you can do this and we'll give you X. So they feel like they're, you know, that we're listening, and we've thought about multiple different ways of solving that question, and just really trying to be in their shoes and how we would feel if we were the customers ourselves. And that's it, really. Like, we don't necessarily have like a magic answer for everything. And my God, there is so many like crazy situations where you're like, you've been shouted at. My husband's been shouted at. And you're like, and then, you know, 16 emails back and forth later, they're like, oh no, it was just with our neighbour the whole time.
Oh my gosh.
And in those situations, you're like, that's fine. I'm so happy you found it. But, you know, it is like that. And just trying to understand where their frustrations come from and act with empathy and kindness.
Yeah. Okay, if you were to offer brand leaders out there any advice for building brand advocacy, what would be your advice?
I've been thinking about this. Building like your customers are be all and end all. Like they are the most important. I think during the last 7 years, there has been times where I've lost focus of what I know my customers want, because I was trying to build a different segment of the business, or when I was trying to concentrate a little bit more on growing a wholesale business. And you need to have that laser sharp focus on listening to your customers and making them happy. And I think ultimately that is where it is. And product is also where you're going to win them over. And it's so easy to forget product. And I know lots of people talk about, oh, everybody can make really brilliant product. It's about X, Y, and Z. I really don't because there's so much noise around social media, around, even like social proof, and people, reviewing your products online and telling you how amazing it is. It's actually, I think, now got to a point where you distrust that. There's mistrust there.
Yeah.
So unless you can prove yourself with a product, I don't think anything else that you can do can really do anything. Like it comes from product, it comes from the customers loving your product, and advocacy will come from that naturally.
Yeah.
So every time we've hit a challenge, every time we've hit a bump in the road, every time we just kind of gone, we put this much amount in like performance marketing, but it's not working. Why? Because the product wasn't right, And I think happy customers are the best advocates for your brand.
Yeah. Great advice. What is next for KITRI?
Lots. I think it's going to have to be a store. So we're looking at that right now. We've done pop-up stores before, which have been incredible for us in the beginning. Again, we did like 2 back-to-back, one in 2017, one in 2018 when we first launched. One was in Marylebone in London, one was in Soho, purely around like brand activations and word of mouth awareness. And it really worked. But it's now just trying to understand like, where will we go? Where do our customers want us to be in? And really kind of building a footprint on how, if KITRI World was in a store, what would that look like and how that can be scaled. So that's kind of our next big challenge, I think.
Love it.
Yeah.
And I'll be the first there, please. Haeni, this has been absolutely lovely. Honestly, I've loved digging into the story of the brand and, sort of finding out more about the journey. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely speaking to you.
Thank you.
That was another episode of Building Brand Advocacy, the world's top brand building podcast. To find out more about building brand advocacy and how this podcast is part of a bigger plan for our brand building cookbook, then make sure to search for Building Brand Advocacy in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that podcasts are found, and make sure that you click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Thanks to Duel for sponsoring. To find out more, go to www.duel.tech, that's duel.tech. And on behalf of the team here at Building Brand Advocacy, thanks for listening.